Kids and Art is our highlighted charity for this month. If you go to Kids and Art, just spell it out, y'all, kidsandart.org is the website for this wonderful organization using art and arts education to help pediatric cancer patients. That's right, children going through one of the toughest things that they and their parents and families can possibly go through as far as illness goes. This is a very, very good organization. This is also a month in which I've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of artists, particularly indie filmmakers who are talking about powerful storytelling. Today is one of those episodes, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. But please be aware that kidsandart.org is the place to go to help the organization to do their work, helping youth. All righty, on with the show.
The Broken Brain.
Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Broken Brain. You're back here with me, Dwight, your host, as we look at the intersection of psychology and culture. And as we have been doing this month, doing a deep dive into storytelling, particularly it's Indie Film Festival time. I've been able to have people coming on who are involved with the Dallas International Film Festival and the Cinequest Film Festival. And today is the latter. In fact, we're going to be talking about Mary the Widow, which is the winner of the Best Short and had its world premiere at Cinequest on, it was on March 15th. At 10 a.m. That was in the blurb, so I just thought I would mention that to everybody in case they were keeping track. I'm really, really privileged and honored to be joined today by the writer, director, creator of this film, Ryan Noufers. Ryan, hello. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor to get to speak about projects and meet someone new, so thanks for having me.
Well, this is one of the things I really like about shorts. And speaking as someone whose main interest oftentimes on the podcast, I love getting people on to talk about films and stories that have to do with relationships, that have to do with powerful issues. And one of the great things about shorts is the limited real estate commodity, whatever, of time. And people have to be so clever to make a good short, and to just pack a lot into a little amount of time. And you do that quite well with this. It really resonates and hits several different issues. This is a short where we get to see the titular Mary, the widow, going as an older woman going into a sort of speed dating event particularly for widows and widowers. And that is the setup. That is the plot. I wondered, how would you introduce this project to the listeners and maybe tell them a little bit about what caused this to happen, what to tell this particular story?
Definitely. So the film is based off of my late grandma, whose name was Mary. And she passed when I was, I believe, 11 or 12, and she had Alzheimer's. And so for the entirety of knowing her, I was always confused as to why she didn't know sometimes who my mom was. And so it was always a very haunting experience to witness someone who was drawing at straws to try to understand their environment, the people around them. So I've always wanted to do a piece on memory, and something that has just haunted me since then, where this person who I had love for, and I was trying to seek love from them back, but there was some sort of force between us that was keeping us from having a smooth highway of love. And so as a kid, that was hard to understand. And so I've wanted to do a piece that talks about how love and memory sometimes slips between your fingers, but I didn't want to make it too hopeless, even though it is a topic that can get there. So I tried to make it a sad, warm hug of a film, I guess you could say.
Yeah, with talks of especially age-related diseases of memory in the brain, dementia and Alzheimer's, obviously with a big aging population, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of talk about it. it touches everybody's lives, because even if anybody out there, if it hasn't yet, it will, one way or another. I mean, it's just about inevitable that it's going to affect a loved one or ourselves or whatever, especially if we, as a society, as we're living long enough, right, that there's going to be some issues around some of these things. And I think that you mentioned the idea of hopefulness versus hopelessness. And I think traditionally, as I was growing up, it was always something that's just basically so sad, so hopeless. You just basically didn't talk about it unless you absolutely had to, right? And I like that I'm seeing stories that are coming out about the phase of life as an older person in the later years, and specifically with issues of memory, where people are finding, as medical science is also working to find hopeful ways to improve quality of life and relationships, I'm seeing more of these stories being told that are like, let's try to embrace the whole person, and not just like, isn't this sad that, it's just grandma doesn't remember things as well, and there's a sadness. But then what is it like for her? What is it like for those around her? And with Mary in the story, her relationship then with how she's relating to her daughter and to those around her, and that, what were some ways that you started to bring in some of that relationshipy stuff to hit that once again in such a short amount of time, to be able to get across what you were trying to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was important in the film. When I started to make the short, I was doing a lot of research into just people who have dealt with Alzheimer's or dementia in general. And what I found so beautiful is that certain aspects of their brain is reactivated by old memories, such as like a song they used to love, or just a particular moment for some reason hasn't been attacked by the disease yet. Or an old soulmate, something about them, their scent or the way they looked, or just their name never leaves them. And so I wanted to basically, explore that idea of someone whose memory is starting to slip between their fingers, but they are able to have this unbelievable amount of emotion evoked at the sound, at just the mention of someone's name, and them being able to hold on to that as like the darkness starts to creep in and starts to consume them. I guess I wanted to talk about, what we can do to help them hold on to the light, and what we can have them, what solace can they sort of latch on to. I guess that is sort of, if I wanted to think about the film and like, what can people walk away from its sort of learning or holding on to, it's that, if you have a loved one who's going through dementia or going through Alzheimer's, just finding ways to make them comfortable and finding ways for them to be able to, like, maybe there is a certain song that when you play that joy floods back to them. And so just like figuring, what they're able to crystallize and keep hold of, and to keep that flame alive with them.
Yeah, it's trying to engage then in the relationship with an acceptance that the rules are changing, like the way that because we're so used to normal social reciprocity. And I loved how you said that. It's very poignant in your own situation of saying, like, I love this person, and how do I show that? How do I interpret and get it back also? Because part of that is trying to look for what is there. And would you say changing expectations to some extent, of being like, here's how I would expect somebody to show me love, and maybe that's not happening. I need to figure out a different way to communicate or what to expect?
Yeah, and well, because at that age it was tough, because you're a kid, so your emotional vocabulary is so limited, and you're still understanding the basic shape and like rules of engagement with any type of emotion. And so I was trying to figure out, like, how do I get love from this person that, like, is so common. She's your grandma, so in common society it's like, oh, your grandma's supposed to love you, but that wasn't the most telltale signs of love wasn't there to a kid, sometimes it's as simple as like the way a mother looks at you and you go, oh my God, that's my mom, she loves me, I see love in her eyes. But with my grandma, just looking in her eyes, you could see sort of the fog of dementia. And so immediately as a kid, you were just heartbroken about like, wait, what's going on? Like, why is she not recognizing me? Or why isn't her eyes filled with love? So yeah, for a kid, I think that's maybe parents should talk more, because I don't know if my mom's a great person and I love her, but I don't know how much she actually talked to me about like, this is what's going on. So, but I don't blame her, because it's a hard thing to talk about with a kid. How do you explain to a child that like, grandma's memories are slipping? So it's hard, but finding better ways to communicate that. It's all a learning experience.
You're absolutely right. And I'll say, sometimes as a parent, speaking as a parent who's sometimes maybe too protective about, or hesitant, I know this feeling of being hesitant to talk about things, especially if they are just sad, if that's how they feel. And it's like, I don't, is it better to not dwell on it? And I think historically, generationally, we've had some shifting over time of, just because it's real doesn't mean it's a good idea to dwell on it. And then on the other hand, being like, but are we dwelling on something if we have a healthy dialogue about something that is happening anyway? And as you described, you had thoughts about it. It's not like you didn't know, or it's not like not talking about it makes us feel, oh yeah, that's right. Is that happening? Oh, if I knew, I'd be sad. And it's like, well, no, you knew and you were sad. And to your point also, it's like your mom then also is dealing, because that's her mother, right? And trying to say, how do I cope with my parent going through that, and then also talk to my kid? It's very, very hard to do. And I like the way that you the interactions that she does have with her adult daughter in the film, I think really try to capture that. And there's kind of bookend there, right? Because she talks to her in the beginning and then she talks to her at the end of this experience, the speed dating activity. Yeah. Now, one of the things that hit me about it is Mary in the film is at this stage of problems that are kind of the in-between stage, which I think sometimes can be very, very, I don't want to say harder or easier or whatever. There's pros and cons to any kind of situation, but it reminded me, there's a line that really, of dialogue that really stood out to me in the TV show, Boston Legal, a show from a long time. Anybody out there, that's a ways back, but William Shatner plays this kooky, weird kind of problematic character who is an attorney, that he's really eccentric and he's really weird. And he tries to pretend that he's not going through the early stages of Alzheimer's. I don't remember if it was Alzheimer's or dementia, particularly in the show. But anyway, there's a line where he's in the middle of doing something weird, and another character, I think it's James Spader's character, who's a friend of his, they're talking. And at one point, his character lets his guard down and he says, the line is, if God's going to take away your talent and abilities, it'd be nice if he also took away your memory of them at the same time. So that living in between, where it's like, I can tell this ain't working in myself, and that's not cool, but I also can't really do very much about it except try my best. Right. And that's why I feel like that's where Mary's living. If we look at now internally for her, and creating a character who's going through that, what did you find was going through your mind as you're creating where Mary was at and how she was coping?
Well, yeah, when people get to experience the film, it was important to me that the dementia was something that in the beginning is just briefly foreshadowed. It's not from, as people watch the film, you're like, oh, this is immediately a film about Alzheimer's. I wanted it to just be a few little breadcrumbs that you leave in the beginning, and then the ending really comes back to it. Because I think that in between stage, that where cognizance in someone going through dementia or Alzheimer's is still, nearly fully there, I think that is the most heartbreaking spot to explore, at least for me narratively, where someone, Julie Areola, who plays Mary in the film, one of my favorite moments of acting from her. I mean, it's hard to choose because she's just so wonderful in it, but that moment where she realizes near the end of the film, oh no, I think my memory is failing me. And what she does emotionally in that scene just always, always breaks my heart, because you're seeing a person realizing in real time that their memory is failing them, and that this is probably going to be a slippery slope from here, and this is just going to continue to snowball. And that will never not just break my heart thinking about it, because people go through that every day, where, I mean, that's what's so, cruel about all diseases, but Alzheimer's in particular, where you start to get these early symptoms and these early signs. And with Alzheimer's, there's nothing you can do about it currently. I mean, they have, there's some cognitive therapy that has been applied to Alzheimer's, but they can't stop it. And
it's more management and memory aids and things. And most of it really is targeted for that in-between stage, which is also the scariest. And then because once it advances to where you can't, if I can't remember to set timers, then timers aren't helpful anymore, for example, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I just couldn't imagine people going through that. I mean, people are braver and stronger than me to be at that point in life, and to, meet that news and still be able to wake up the next day. Because right now it's just, maybe I'm just a coward, but I just couldn't handle that idea of someone telling you, all right, starting from now, and it's either a doctor telling you that, or it's your own body and mind telling you that, where it's starting from now, you're going to start to lose everything you hold near and dear. And it's just, there's just nothing more cruel than that. And so in this film, I wanted to explore that moment where someone might start to get those big warning signs. And this is maybe one of the first big warning signs they've gotten. And
that's
so, that ending scene in particular is something I'm very proud of, because I don't know how much credit I can honestly take for it, because it really just lies in the hands and strengths of Julie, our lead, who she just made it feel so real, and just something so, I don't know, to me it's almost like a horror movie at the end, where I know people watching probably won't interpret it that way, but to me it's like cognitive decline is my number one greatest fear. And so to see that play out and Julie play it in a believable way is just, it was very powerful.
It's interesting you say that, because I did read it as a viewer as maybe this is the first time, or maybe the first major time, where she did say, uh-oh. And the thing you captured also is that the way in which she has this realization, it's not on her own. It's embarrassing, because it has to do with her saying a thing to a person about a perception of reality, and them saying like, what are you, I don't think that happened. And her having to say like, oh, now I have to back out of this conversation, as well as deal with the realization that I am now processing on my own. And because there's that moment of having to say, do I say, oh, my mistake, or, oh yeah, something major just happened, I don't know if I want to talk to you about it, or, going through that realization moment. That's how it felt, very much as a rude awakening kind of moment. It didn't seem like, oh, here we go again, kind of a moment for her. Yeah.
No, it was totally supposed to be that, that this is maybe the first time, like maybe she had previous to the short film, in the world of the short film, maybe she had clues of, oh, why did I forget to set that timer? But, as you age, I think I'm only 31, but I experience things where I just feel sometimes more forgetful, in very microcosmic, small ways. But I think that's just a natural progression of aging. But it's not till you have a big moment like she has in the film where you go, oh no, I think this is different. I think this might be something that is actually clinical. No, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say it helped. The punch of that moment, I think, was helped by the fact that as a viewer, as you said, you didn't make it like Mary the Widow's dementia struggle or something. I mean, it wasn't like you didn't hang a lantern on the front. We all kind of went through that with her to where, I kind of felt as I'm watching like, oh, this is a kind of story where we're not, I'm going along with Mary. She's doing this thing. She doesn't really know if she wants to do this thing. She's going in. There's obviously pressure to everybody else. And I think this happens at different periods of our lives differently. Everyone else knows what she should want, supposedly. Like, you should want to be partnered again. So go to this thing. And then there's this, and then there's the comedic element, which you hit very well and picked a good handful of dudes to be the dudes you do not want to get their number. And to a certain extent, that also hits up this whole idea of like, even though it's within the framework of them being aged, it's just like, yeah, here's another experience of a woman getting approached by men who she does not want to talk to, of that experience being like, here we go again, I'm sure, in a way, of someone. And then getting into, oh, this is actually going to be, now here's the romantic element of the story, and not knowing where that was leading, to setting us up for that. And I don't know how much you want to say about it, by the way. You can say whatever you want to about, we kind of get a little twist there that shows us what we're actually witnessing. Right. And so whatever you want to say about it.
I mean, yeah. It's a short film. There's no spoiler territory for short films. So yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, if people go to watch the short film after this, you find out that she's on a date with someone who she has misinterpreted. People read it in multiple ways, but I will just say that she goes on a date after many unsuccessful dates with men who, yeah, from a comedic standpoint, I just found that funny to challenge, the idea of an elderly person in a speed dating setting just is one of those things that is paradoxical, where like, people at an older age like to take things slower. And so speed dating, I thought, would be
sure,
a gently comical venue to have someone go through. After she goes on a successful date, Mary, and then at the end of the film, you find out that this was maybe not, the date wasn't what she thought it was in her own memory. So, and you find out that she was conflating this date with her old partner who passed.
Yeah.
And so, people have interpreted it as, was the person she was on a date with actually there and then she misremembered him as her husband, or was the whole memory fabricated and what we see in the film is just a fabrication of her deteriorating mind? To me, I have an answer, which that I won't say.
Okay.
But yeah. It's up to the viewer to see, find out what they think it was. But I wanted it to be obviously the date she goes on with, who's played by Stephen Tobolowsky, is a successful one, and there's a lot of chemistry and love in the air. At the end, you find out that that date evoked a memory of a lost loved one.
The ease with which they have chemistry. And of course, I had not seen her before, but of course, anybody who sees Stephen Tobolowsky, anyone who's watched his movies will say, oh, yeah, that's him. Because he's all over the place. But there was such an ease of chemistry between this couple. And I'll say, all the way around, performance, writing, directing, whatever, all the combination of those, it got me in a real way, because I bought it as two people who are just kindred spirits meeting. And then once that realization kind of hits, going like, oh, wait, two people who have ease because of the element of familiarity, loving familiarity, that's there as well, which is, there's no attempt by either of them to say, let's make this into a flirty, cool thing. But then it just naturally, there's just an ease with which we're both two cool people at first. And then it's like, wow, really kindred spirits. And then when you do the little flip to where you say, however much of this was either a guy she was projecting onto or nobody that was there, and she was just remembering her husband, either way, it was like, oh, that makes sense. It just worked all the way around, and it all, once again, set up for that emotional gut punch quite well, I thought. And And I also like that it showed it, and seeing projects that are showing this from the internal side, not just the caregiver side, but this is the internal side of her. And I felt like there's a real poignancy to that realization, because not only now is she realizing this bad news, but to me, it also seemed like she was realizing, I don't want to date anybody. Like, I don't really necessarily want to go date anybody. And we see her and her daughter just talking about, yeah, I miss him. We miss him.
Yeah. And, I guess to start with Stephen Tobolowsky, I casted him. Well, I mean, I was so lucky to be able to cast him, but I was looking to find someone with a familiar face, because I wanted the experience of the audience to mirror the experience of Mary. So as that person sat down, I wanted the audience to go, wait, this face feels so familiar. Mm-hmm. And that is sort of the first breadcrumb and foreshadowing tool I use to show that, like, oh wait, Mary does have a sense of familiarity with this person. Why is that so? So I hope in the initial, bits of dialogue on the date, you go like, why is there such immediate chemistry? Like, that would be me successfully doing my job. Like, I hope some people are like, this is way too cute and perfect, which, you find out at the end of the film, there's a reason why it's too cute and perfect. And yeah, Stephen Tobolowsky was just so, oh man, he was so charming in his performance, and him and Julie just immediately, on short films, you don't have time to, or at least I didn't have time to rehearse or do a chemistry read between the actors. So it's sort of something you're just crossing your fingers. And I was just hoping, like, oh my God, please let them have chemistry. And because, once they were acting, cameras were rolling. So wow. It was like, do we have it? And immediately on the first take, they were making each other laugh in parts of the script I didn't necessarily intend them to laugh at. And it just came alive. And they are both just such talented performers. And seeing them just react off of each other, it was genuine chemistry. Like, and I was just, I was behind the monitor giddy, just being like, oh my God, it works. Because the whole film, the whole film hinges on that. If you don't feel love between them, the film wouldn't work at all. And so, yeah, I was so lucky to capture it.
And I know I keep mentioning this because I think that it was just so powerful, because to me it hit, as you put it, it's like, oh, why would they, whatever. To me, it was like, okay, we are fully into, my mind went fully into, and, sort of like Golden Years rom-com kind of feeling, or rom anyway. I don't know, but if there was obviously there's the comedy there as well. So like, this is kind of the vibe of a rom-com in later years. That's interesting. That's cool. And then to be like, oh, huh, and feel that was just, it was very meaningful, because in a way it still is. There is still, I took it to say it was a rom-com, because it's just a rom-com with her life partner, who she had already, and to realize that, it's that other side of memory where you see hanging on to like the older memories that are there, to where it's like, yeah, oftentimes people are losing that short term kind of, and then eventually functionality and all those things. But to say that there is this life that's been there that is still meaningful, it's still very actively part of one's life. It just, that was one of the things that it seemed to me is like the respect for her memories. It felt very respectful to that former relationship that she was able to have.
I mean, I think it's so beautiful when people develop a muscle memory with another human, and where like you think of them as just another extension of your own body. And some people might call that codependency, but I think it's just the beautiful poetry of love, where, at the end of your life, your brain just wants that person sitting next to you, and you just feel at home when that person is next to you. And so I think, if someone loses a partner and they become a widow, at least they have sort of the, when this might be a weird metaphor, but when people lose a limb, they have, phantom limbs. And it's sort of like you still feel the presence of an arm that isn't actually there. And I think widows have that same sort of phantom memory of lost loved ones where it feels like they're still sitting next to them. And I don't think that's sad or a bad thing. I think that's, something that they have to still seek comfort from. And so I guess I wanted to really torture the audience with sadness where we're going like, well, what if a widow was starting to even lose that? And I hope to think that that would always remain in someone, but Alzheimer's is vicious, so it can even take that. But yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that this particular, cognitive decline is your greatest fear. I wonder what you would share with people about this method of addressing and hitting your fear head on through your art.
Definitely. I mean,
talk about that with people. Yeah.
Yeah. I ever since I was a kid, my first greatest fear was death. I think I grew up with some hypochondriacs, and I was tortured by the idea from a young age that, oh my God, I'm going to die, and all my fun times I have on this earth are just going to leave. And so I was a very macabre kid where I just thought about that a lot and thought about the cruelty of the universe. And then that transitioned quickly while I was young to, well, why don't I just enjoy the time I have on Earth? But then, sometimes your brain likes to, be your own worst enemy. So it says, well, what if I take away even the joy of you on Earth by making you go crazy? And so, like, I have very OCD tendencies. And so when I was a young kid, I just could not stop perseverating on that idea that my mind might slip. And so it was tough as a kid to constantly be worried about that, because it really did bring me so much anxiety around the idea. But now as I've grown older, I do look at because I do look at that time as a kid where I would just sit awake at night worrying about it almost as a blessing, because this is something that I want to creatively explore for the rest of my life, because everyone deals with it in some way where, I've had multiple friends go through mental health crises, and some have never rebounded from them. And I think that there's sometimes just this, not to get too pessimistic, because I think there's so much light and joy in the world, but sometimes there's just an arbitrary cruelty in the universe where it does attack someone who has all the potential in life, and then mental illness just knocks on their door. And sometimes people don't rebound from it. But, I want to explore stories in my work where it's like, how can you rebound from a mental health crisis? And how can you avoid perseverating on cognitive decline when you're in middle school and you just want to get home and enjoy a sleepover with friends? I like to, explore stories of people waging war with their own mind, because I think that's the most interesting war that there is to explore. Sounds corny, but the battle with yourself is the most interesting. It's the most interesting topic for me, because I think everyone fights that fight.
To me, non-surprisingly, it'd probably be weird if I did. I don't find that corny at all. In my background, because the podcast, I am a therapist, right? And so, working with that's the most interesting stories that I have heard in my life have been working with people, and I see that in my own experience, right? Also, I think one of the ways we can see that it's an important type of story is that oftentimes people are afraid to tell it. I think there's a fear of going there sometimes. And I don't know. I'm not sure if people are more afraid of the way the audience would interpret it, or if they will run away from it, or if they're scared of it themselves, or maybe some combination. Because I do feel like sometimes.
I think it's.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
I think it's a combination. And I think it's sometimes that, and I get it. We want to go to the movies to escape our own brain. And I've been there too, where I just want something to comfort me. But sometimes I think, my favorite movies are movies that challenge you. I like the most rewarding experiences I've had is when I got out of a movie and I felt really deeply uncomfortable about something. And I think people get very uncomfortable at the idea of, it's embarrassing sometimes when you're going through a mental health crisis because it's this age-old stigma that, people don't want to talk about mental health. And that I think sometimes as a kid, I hinted at it, but I was diagnosed and had severe OCD as a kid. And I hid it for a very long time because I didn't want my friends to find out. I didn't want my family to find out because I felt like it made me weaker. And, we are as humans still animals, and we operate within an animal kingdom that is a very social hierarchy. And so I think as a kid, I immediately intuited that, where I went, oh, if I tell people about my weird OCD, they're going to perceive me as weaker. But I think, the movies is a safe space to explore the stigma of mental health and to help sort of combat narratives and, take people into the scary recesses of the mind, but hopefully at the end find a way as a society to dismantle stigma and make it so we can talk about mental health more openly, and to make someone less afraid. Maybe, if a kid goes to see a movie related around the topic of mental health, maybe it could inspire them to sort of be more candid and open. And because I think that in all of my mental health journey, the biggest, the biggest improvements I've made is when I just decided to actually talk with someone about it. And that's happened at multiple stages in my life where it kind of keeps happening, where like a new challenge is thrown at me by my brain, and I go, oh, I don't want to talk to people about this challenge. This feels weird. Like, this feels like I want to just keep this to me. But I don't think people should do that because, we need others. We need to rely on others. And it also makes it a scary monster if you just keep it alone in your own brain. And once you get it out in the world, it becomes less and less scary. So that's my diatribe on it.
I like that too, because I think that sometimes when people tell the stories, it seems like a lot of the stories either lean bleak or lean into the type of hopeful that sometimes almost feels pandering, to where there's these like magical moments of lucidity at just the right narrative points that instead of that I think can almost set up, I don't want to say falso, but just set up an expectation that like, oh, if I have this problem, I should also be magically insightful at times too. And there's a balance because versions of both of those are real life in a way. And I think that if this film that you made is any indication, you have a very good handle on that balance. And so for me, that makes me very excited to see what kind of stories you're going to tell in the future with it. So
thank you. Yeah, I'm working right now on my debut feature film. And it's very much about mental health. And it's set in 2008, where the iPhone had just come out. Viral videos were shifting culture because YouTube was giving the promise of kids everywhere, like me, because I was a kid around 2008. And I was going, oh, wait, I could become famous by uploading a video online. And at the time, that was very exciting. But did that change our culture, because now everyone wants an audience. And hey, I'm trying to be a filmmaker, so I am a bit of a hypocrite if I say that's a bad thing. Don't do that, because sometimes it is healthy to, if you are passionate about ideas and you want to find an audience, that's okay. But as I'm sure, I mean, people have been talking about it for years now, so it's not anything too novel, but there's the dangers of social media, of you chasing a audience in a superficial, glib way and doing the game of comparison where saying this person has more followers than me. Oh my God, I'm less valuable now. And I think, I want it. So the feature I'm telling is set in 2008, where it was sort of the ground zero of that cultural shift, where people started to become hungry for more and more eyeballs on themselves. And it's sort of a dark suburban tale in that time about, I'll just say, a suicide pact. Wow. And it's a dark comedy, so there will be laughter involved in it. But I think that I think that time and culture is just something. It's funny because you're starting to see some films come out from that era that it is funny that that's now a period piece era, where 2008 doesn't feel that far ago. But when you look at like cultural artifacts from that time, it is, man, we have come so far from 2008. Oh, yeah. So there's I love that movie Dee Dee. If I could recommend a movie to people to watch, that movie is excellent. And is around that time. And so I'm very excited to get to explore that era.
It's such a shift too. Yeah. Cause I think the difference that has grown from that is a difference of having a story or a message that you'd like to share. And of course you want people to see it, and being like, now the point is the audience, the point is the views, to the point where many people craft their, let's say, they're putting their creative energy into something that is designed to, if you just watch it long enough to monetize, or if you just watch it long enough to get lots of followers, then I don't care what I do. And I don't know, no shade. Anybody out there, hit me up if you do that and you feel great about it. I'd love to talk to you. But I see that and it's like, wow, that is intimidating, because I see how hard that is on people's psyche, and their psychological health. So that's a fascinating story. Wow, I'm excited to kind of see where that goes, because that's a story and now I feel like we're on the precipice of a new, or actually we're experiencing already, which is a new dive off a deeper new cliff, I guess, of AI, which is bringing acceleration to that process in some very different ways too. So lots of to look back at that's going to be fascinating. Speaking of your work, where should people go to follow what you're doing and to track the film here, and where they can learn about, where they might be able to see the short, or where they can tell what you're up to, stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say just my Instagram. That's the hub that's my electronic business card these days, where I try to post all trailers and announcements. So I am just my name at Ryan Noufer. And that would be the best place to follow along and give me more followers so I can feel more valuable.
And now that you've gone, yeah, perfect. That's research now, though. So see if you get more followers, that's research for the project, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, now that you've gone through the CineQuest, and also congratulations. I mentioned before the award, the best short. That's quite an accomplishment. Is it, are people going to find a place of time where they're going to be able to see? Is this going to go, are you doing the festival thing now, or is Mary, I know that I'll link it in the notes as well. There's a trailer or a message about it on YouTube. I'll put that link up, but is there a chance people are going to be able to see this if they can't make it to particularly go back in time to CineQuest and watch it, or go to a festival?
Yeah, definitely. So we were at the Cleveland Film Festival. We were at this film festival in Iowa called Julian Dubuque. But upcoming, we should have an LA screening this summer. Fingers crossed on a maybe New York screening at a festival. And then, but festivals are definitely hard to make. So I want to put this online ASAP. So yeah, if people follow along on Instagram or whatever, I'm sure by hopefully fall, I'll find a online premiere for it, because Yeah, I want to get it online as soon as possible. I think sometimes the film festival circuit, filmmakers are told to prolong the experience of their festival run as long as possible. But I think the internet is a beautiful and scary place, but the beauty of it is that anyone can watch it anywhere. So I hope that will be very soon.
Cool. And once again, following on your Instagram I'm sure there'll be messages and things about that. So, Ryan, once again, so grateful for you being here. Thank you for talking to us about this great project. Also, I will say just thank you for putting the time and the effort into making it. I know that didn't happen by accident. It's hard work, and I appreciate you doing it.
Dwight, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting.